The Santa Claus trilogy is filled with mysteries. Why, when Scott Calvin scares Santa into falling off of his roof, does Santa wave before disappearing? Why are the elves not shocked, scared, or upset when the Santa they knew didn't return to the North Pole? And how did Bernard know that the original Santa disappeared before Scott and Charlie came to the North Pole?
How did you know the other guy was gone?
Honestly, rewatching this movie after so long was kind of shocking and led me to many questions until I determined a huge revelation in the trilogy. Hello, I'm Isaac from Watch So Videos, where we discuss fun topics for fun people, and today I am analyzing the Santa Claus trilogy to prove all of these odd occurrences point to Scott Calvin not killing Santa.
You killed him!
Did not.
I think the night Scott Calvin transformed into Santa Claus was a planned event. Bernard, the head elf, and all the elves, and even all of the reindeer, knew the role of Santa was being passed on that night. This is why when Scott arrives to the North Pole, the elves look excited, mystified, and welcoming to their new leader instead of feeling resentful or anger like they probably should have if Scott had killed Santa Claus. Bernard even proves he knew about Santa Claus changing position by referencing the old Santa's disappearance and speaks of this almost jokingly towards Scott, showing he was totally at peace with the transfer.
The other Santa disappeared, right?
The elves seem to be at the very least at peace with a new Santa, and that is because they understand the conditions outlined in the Santa Claus. The role of Santa Claus can be passed on to another individual, one of two ways.
The Santa Claus, the wearer waives any and all rights to any previous identity, real or implied, and fully accepts the duties and responsibilities of Santa Claus perpetuity until such time that wearer becomes unable to do so by either accident or design.
See, I just always assumed the circumstances for Scott to inherit the position of Santa Claus was because of the accident that ensued on the night of Christmas, where Santa seemed to fall off of his roof and perish. But couldn't the previous Santa have designed his departure from the role? I mean, what if that Santa had used the escape clause? Curtis, the head elf in the third Santa Claus film, describes the escape clause here.
Secret Santa Snow Globe. Santa. I wish that I had never become Santa at all. And then whoosh! Job opening Santa Claus.
If the old Santa gave up his job as Santa Claus, then there would have been a position that needed to be filled. In the third film, when the Scott Calvin Santa Claus accidentally initiated the escape clause, he and Jack Frost are whisked through time to the night he initially became Santa, and Jack put on the jacket to steal the role. But what would have happened if there would have been no one who wanted to put on the Santa clothes? There had to be a Santa Claus, so how would the role pass on to a new person? Becoming a Santa Claus is described by Scott as,
Being Santa's not something you can take. It's something that chooses you.
but who would have ever chosen Scott Calvin to be the new Santa Claus after the previous one? At the beginning of the original Santa Claus film, Scott was an inconsiderate advertising executive, cynical about the world and sarcastic towards those he didn't care for.
May I speak, please? I am a doctor.
No, he's not. He's a psychiatrist.
How could anyone see that his heart could change and that he would become a dedicated, respected, and jolly Santa? Now, this may seem out of left field, but if someone could only have seen the future, then they would have known the previous Santa's perfect replacement was Scott Calvin. You see, in the original story, Scott's boss, Mr. Whittle, was portrayed by Peter Boyle, who is the same actor who portrays Father Time in the second and third film.
Wait a minute.
Like Santa Claus, Father Time was a member of the Council of Legendary Figures, and together, this organization has a stake and vote in the fate of the other members. We see this through them voting on the proposed name change of the Tooth Fairy and the possible exile of Jack Frost. Maybe, when the previous Santa Claus initiated the escape clause, then the legendary figures went in search of a new Santa disguised as mortals, and when Father Time saw Scott's future as Santa Claus, he proposed to the council he become the new Santa Claus. On the Christmas Eve of Scott's transformation into Santa, I don't think the form Scott saw on his roof was an actual Santa Claus. Why would a Santa Claus wake up the entire household with their landing? An experienced Santa is always extremely stealthy. Why would a Santa Claus just be walking around on the roof without the toy bag? That is the way Santa Claus is explained to enter homes across the world. Plus, if the previous Santa had used the escape clause, then he would have already returned to his previous life like Scott did during his use of his escape clause. There would have been no one to wear the outfit because no one was Santa.
Toys have to be delivered. I'm not gonna do it. It's not my job. I'm just an elf.
I think the form we see is supposed to look like Santa, but I think it is actually just a magical animation of the Santa suit. I believe after Father Time decided with the Council of Legendary Figures Scott would become Santa Claus, they set up this situation of the death of Santa Claus using their magic and utilized the belief of Scott's son Charlie to convince him to put on the outfit. The reason they choose to fake a death of Santa Claus is because they needed a situation stressful enough to get Scott into the outfit to deliver the world's Christmas presents, because only Santa Claus could deliver all of the presents. And of course, when the form of Santa appears to die, the magic on the suit wears off and the suit waves goodbye, not only because it is becoming only Santa's outfit again, but it is also waving goodbye to Scott's identity as a lonely, cynical admin. If Santa Claus was actually destroyed by Scott Kelvin, then the welcoming and excited nature of the elves when Scott arrives to the North Pole seems inappropriate and out of place. Luckily, an unfortunate accident is not the only explanation for the ending of a Santa Claus career. I believe the elves knew a new Santa would be chosen the night of Scott's transformation into Santa Claus because of the previous Santa's decision to end their career using the escape clause. After searching far and wide for a new Santa Claus, Father Time eventually finds the correct man, Scott, when he is disguised as the advertising manager, Mr. Whittle. Without a Santa available to deliver the world's Christmas presents, the Council of Legendary Figures crafted a seemingly dire situation by magically animating the Santa suit to convince Scott to become Santa Claus. So now it's time for the question of the day, sponsored by my patrons. After hearing my theory, do you think Scott Kelvin brought the demise of the previous Santa Claus? I just never liked the idea he got that magical position through another person's death, and all of this evidence seemed to come together. It seems increasingly likely he didn't play a part in the previous Santa's decision to step aside from the role. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so let me know your ideas in the comment section, along with any other ideas you have for future Discovering Disney episodes. If you enjoyed this video, then click that like button. If you'd like to stay up to date with new magical videos, then click that subscribe button and follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And to see more Watso videos, then check out some awesome pics over here. As always, thanks for watching, have a magical day, and Merry Christmas.